My wealthy husband suffered from chronic insomnia, only able to sleep with the help of a sleep sachet I made. At the family gathering for our 7th anniversary, his childhood friend poured a pot of hot water under the old oak tree in the backyard. Tears streaming, I rushed to save the tree. His childhood friend knelt down to apologize. "Sarah, I didn't know you used the leaves from this tree for your sleep sachets." My husband gently comforted her, then ordered his men to tie me to the tree trunk. "This tree is so precious, you can just live with it." After fracturing my wrist, I chose to divorce him immediately. A month later, one night, my husband, unable to sleep, saw the withered old oak tree in the backyard. It was the 7th day after the Cold War before Robert Smith finally came home. The dark circles under his eyes were particularly noticeable. "Haven't you made any new sleep sachets lately?" Robert Smith's insomnia was severe. He could only fall asleep with the sleep sachets I made from the old oak tree's leaves. I was playing on my phone, giving him a nonchalant reply. "Yeah, been feeling lazy lately." I really had been lazy. The ingredients for the sleep sachets came entirely from the tree in the backyard of the old property. It was a long journey, and the weekly half-day trips to collect them always drained my energy. Jessica didn't do it on purpose. "If you keep making a fuss about it, it's going to be too much." He said this while taking liqueur from the refrigerator, sipping it slowly. During these days of the Cold War, the liqueur Jessica Hayes found was his new method to try and improve his sleep. He put ice cubes in his glass and glanced at me. "Jessica didn't know what that tree meant to you. To make up for it these past few days, she found a plantation that makes sense. I've already arranged for someone to buy it. It'll be put under your name later. Let's just let this go." I found it somewhat amusing. Buying a plant. Asian with marital assets to apologize to me on behalf of his female secretary. What a good husband I had. I thought to myself, not forgetting to sound polite. "All right, thank Mrs. Smith for me." Robert Smith finally showed his first expression since coming home, looking at me with clear impatience. "Sarah, what else can you do besides being jealous?" I met his gaze calmly. "I can also divorce you. Instead of spending time with your little girlfriend buying plantations, you should sign the divorce papers quickly." Dragging a signature for 7 days? That's not Mr. Smith's style of doing business. Robert Smith stared at me for a few seconds, then finally lost all interest in talking to me. He sat on the sofa and started fiddling with his phone. Occasionally he'd frown in thought, as if working. If I hadn't seen him and Jessica Hayes flirting on his social media feed. "Jessica, you look beautiful today. Do you know I'm taking you out to dinner tonight? Don't be so narcissistic. Tonight I'm clearly dressed up to have dinner with your mother." Line after line of sweet talk and declarations of affection on the screen, accompanied by the quiet atmosphere in the room. They confirmed once again that divorce was the correct choice. I lowered my head and wiped the corner of my eye. If it were before, crying and making a scene in front of him would have been my only option. But now, for a dead marriage, there was no need for me to degrade myself. "Did you make Mom angry again?" My husband finally started talking to me, prompted by Jessica Hayes's kind reminder. "Jessica will accompany Mom on a trip in a few days and help you calm her down. If only you could learn some of Jessica's ways, you might be a little more sensible." I let out a silent laugh. I'm already prepared to give her the position of Mrs. Smith. Isn't that sensible enough? Robert Smith's gloomy gaze carried obvious threat. "Sarah, is being dramatic your signature M?" "Oh?" I finally stood up, giving up on any further communication with this man. "Maybe." "Oh, right. Knowing you don't have time to sign the divorce papers. I've already had my lawyer initiate divorce proceedings. Don't worry, I'll cover all the costs myself." I found a lawyer the day after the family gathering. On the day of the family gathering, Jessica Hayes poured a pot of hot water on the old oak tree right in front of me, her expression full of provocation. "Let's see if Robert still wants you when you don't have sleep sachets anymore." Robert Smith carried the sleep sachets I made with him every day. She was jealous but helpless. I was anxious to save the old oak tree and accidentally pushed her. I didn't expect Robert Smith to see it and order his men to tie me to the old oak tree and leave me hanging there all night. No matter how much I cried out, he just left with a single phrase, "Reflect properly," and turned to leave, holding his secretary. I struggled until midnight, and my hand turned a frightening purple from the lack of blood flow. The old oak tree seemed to sense my despair, and a thick branch broke. I clung to a last shred of hope and called Robert Smith. The phone connected, and his cold voice rang out, "Sarah, haven't you learned your lesson? Jessica was scared by you today. I need to stay with her. If you're not dead, don't bother me." Jessica Hayes' voice came through the phone, "Robert, it's time for your bath." Shaking, I hung up, lay on the ground, and let my tears soak the earth. Finally, I called the lawyer. In the living room, Robert Smith still thought I was unreasonable. "Sarah, you only have yourself to blame for what happened yesterday." "Blame myself?" I laughed. "Yes, blame myself. This outcome is entirely my own doing." Robert Smith and I met during a kidnapping case. He was held in a dark warehouse. My father rescued him and brought him home. He was covered in injuries after being rescued, and my father asked me to take care of him. Gradually, we developed feelings for each other. We stayed in touch even after he was taken back to the Smith family home. Perhaps due to PTSD, he started suffering from insomnia that no treatment could cure. He said that every time he closed his eyes, he would return to that dark warehouse filled with the smell of decay, no light, no one, no me. I felt heartache but was helpless. Until he returned to visit my father and unexpectedly slept under the old oak tree in my family's yard, enjoying a full night's sleep. I started making sleep sachets from the old oak tree's leaves and sending them to him. He carried them with him every day, and his insomnia gradually improved. Later, to be able to prepare fresh sleep sachets for him at any time, I gave up the opportunity to study abroad and chose to enter the art major at his school. On graduation day, he took my hand, which was covered in needle marks, and tears welled up in his eyes as he looked at the scars, heartbroken. After starting work, to help his company expand its market, I put down my paintbrush and started accompanying him to various banquets and events. We worked together seamlessly and quickly gained a foothold in the market. One day after drinking, he held my hand and mumbled. He said I was the hand that pulled him out of the darkness. He said he wanted to walk the rest of his life holding my hand. His face was flushed, and his eyes sparkled when he spoke, like brilliant stars. Against my better judgment, I nodded. That night, we pledged our lives to each other. Now, the hand that pulled him back to life was crippled by him personally. I was sent to the hospital by my lawyer that night of the family gathering, only to be told by the doctor that the nerve damage in my hand was severe and I might never be able to hold a pen again. The lawyer suggested I sue Robert Smith for assault/intentional bodily harm. I temporarily refused his suggestion, asking him to focus on the divorce first, and to consider adding evidence later if needed. The pain of physical therapy pulled me forcefully from my memories. The doctor looked at my hand, full of regret. "If you had been brought in just 1 hour earlier." "What a shame." I smiled, my face pale. "It's all right, I'm free. No longer would I need to pull all-nighters producing design drafts for his career. No longer would I need to prick my fingers making sleep sachets for his health. No longer would I need to chase after him, waiting for him to turn around for his heart." The doctor prescribed some nerve repair medication and then thanked me again. "Miss Sarah, the sleep aid formula you provided to the hospital has passed clinical trials and is now being promoted in hospitals throughout the city. On behalf of the hospital, I thank you again. This result was within my expectations." Many hospitals were helpless against Robert Smith's insomnia. He could only sleep with this formula. After years of my adjustments, its effectiveness was only better, not worse. As I came out of the physical therapy room, I happened to run into Jessica Hayes. She came clicking in stiletto heels and stopped in front of me, her eyes full of contempt and disdain. "Sarah, you really are haunting me. How is it that we run into you everywhere?" "We?" Yes, how could Robert Smith be without Jessica Hayes? Ever since Jessica Hayes returned from abroad, these two seemed to know nothing about distance. I didn't want to see Robert Smith, much less see them being lovey-dovey, like a couple in heat. Just as I was about to leave, Robert Smith appeared before me, his tone full of dissatisfaction and disgust. Are you stalking me? I couldn't blame him for thinking that. I had followed him for 7 years, from high school through college. I would have felt that way myself. Robert Smith, narcissism is a disease. You need to treat it quickly. As I said this, I stuffed the medical report into my bag, preparing to walk around him and leave. As I passed him, he actually grabbed my wrist, tightly, as if he was going to crush it. The sudden pain caused my expression to lose control slightly. Let go. I gritted out the 2 words. In the 7 years I was with Robert Smith, I had always been calm and pleasant with him, even when angry. The only expression I showed was feeling wronged. Seeing my pale face, he slowly released my hand, his gaze showing a hint of concern and doubt. Why are you at the hospital? Are you sick? I'll be back in a few days. You don't need to keep such a close eye on me. Also, stop faking illness. You acting pathetic looks very fake. So, in his eyes, every time I encountered him was a result of my plotting. Every moment of vulnerability was me pretending to be pitiful. Even when I was seeing a doctor, he thought I was faking it poorly. It turned out that when disappointment reached its peak, there was no need to argue. I looked at him expressionlessly, my tone full of indifference. Yeah, sure, whatever you want to think, it's up to you. Sign the divorce papers as soon as possible so I can get out of your way. Robert Smith finally couldn't control his temper and sharply reprimanded me. Sarah, if you keep being so difficult, you'll waste the last chance I'm giving you. I gave him a cold look. Thanks, but no need. Then I didn't stop walking. The pain from my wrist stimulated my nerves, keeping me absolutely clear-headed in front of the man I had loved for 7 years. Robert Smith wanted to chase after me and say something else, but Jessica Hayes grabbed his arm. Robert, I just got a sleep aid formula from someone at this hospital. Jessica Hayes affectionately linked her arm through Robert Smith's. You haven't been sleeping well lately, have you? We can try it. The hospital was full of people coming and going. Robert Smith looked down at the extremely familiar formula and stood there stunned for a long time, not moving at all. To help Robert Smith expand his business, I had also built up my own network of connections, many of whom I still kept in touch with. Since I couldn't draw anymore, I started shifting my focus to the business sector. After submitting my resignation to the company, I embarked on an inspection tour of Lakewood State. During this time, Robert Smith's calls came repeatedly. I wondered how Mr. Smith, who was usually too busy to even reply to my messages, had so much time for these boring calls. Before blocking him, I chose to answer one. The voice on the other end suddenly sounded chaotic, followed by Robert Smith's slightly surprised voice. Have you made enough fuss? The sleep sachets are used up. It's time to make new ones. It's just a sleep sachet. If you can't buy one, find Jessica Hayes to make one for you. An entire fragrance plantation isn't enough? Can you stop being so sarcastic? How long ago did that happen? You just can't move on, can you? What do you want me to do to make you satisfied? I didn't even have the energy to argue with him anymore. Every time we encountered a problem, he never thought about facing it directly, but instead used material things to measure and compensate me for the wrongs I suffered. In his mind, if I got something out of it, I should just let it go and never mention it again. I couldn't help but sneer. Robert Smith, not everything can be settled with money. This tree helped you for 7 years. 7 years. Even raising a dog for 7 years with no gratitude. How could you be so completely indifferent? The man was silent for a second, like the calm before the storm. Sarah, watch your attitude and tone when you speak to me. Ignoring his anger, I muttered to myself, Robert Smith, I also stayed with you for 7 years, but that day you only cared about defending her. What am I to you anyway? Hearing my calm narration, the man's tone held a hint of panic. You're my wife. I was impulsive that day. Just come back obediently, and I won't hold it against you for leaving home. Let's just call these two things even. I laughed. Call it even? Can we also write off our relationship? The man's patience ran out again. Sarah, have you lived comfortably for too long that you need to suffer a little to realize your place? Without me, Robert Smith, you are nothing. What makes you think you can push for a divorce? If we really divorce, I guarantee you'll be back crying and begging me to reconcile within a month. I deliberately let out a mocking laugh, then hung up and blocked him. Robert Smith's confidence came from my design patents being highly competitive in the market, but it would be easy to ruin him. At a cafe in Oakwood City, I accepted David Adams's request and transferred all my latest designs and patents to him. After returning, I packed my bags and moved into the apartment I had rented. It wasn't big, but it felt more secure than living at the Smith family home. Just as I was about to leave, I saw Robert Smith waiting at the door. After a few days, the man who was usually elegant and handsome had grown light stubble. Sarah, what have you done? How could the company receive a lawsuit from Oakwood City? Robert Smith's words were full of anger and disbelief. The reason for the lawsuit is intellectual property infringement. And those infringing works all came from your hands. I smiled sweetly. Didn't you say you were going to make me regret this? Well, let's wait and see. If you don't want to lose more, sign the divorce papers quickly. When will you ever learn to be sensible and stop making a scene out of jealousy? Don't you know how much trouble you've caused Jessica? You'll have countless more works in the future. Why are you fixated on just these few? Robert Smith's eyes were red-rimmed, and anger was starting to gather in them. Just then, his phone rang abruptly. Robert Smith answered IT with one hand and put it on speakerphone. The voice of his work assistant came through. Mr. Smith, we found out about your wife going to the hospital last time. Robert Smith glanced at me meaningfully. Go on. Mechanical injury caused nerve rupture. She's been undergoing physical therapy after repair surgery. The first hospital visit was the night of the family gathering. What did you say? Robert Smith's fingers holding the phone turned slightly white. Are you sure you didn't make a mistake? Watching shock and doubt alternate on Robert Smith's face, I felt the man was both pathetic and ridiculous. Even now, he suspected I was conspiring with the doctor to put on a show. Robert Smith softened his tone. Let's put this matter aside for now. Once I find out the truth, I will naturally compensate you. Now, resolve this issue first, and I will treat you well in the future. The man's promises were utterly empty, worse than any lie. Anyone who believed him deserved to be fooled. I pulled my clothes tighter, crossed my arms, and looked at the man before me, starting to doubt my judgment of character. A year ago, Jessica Hayes returned from abroad and joined Robert Smith's company as his personal assistant. Afraid I would object, the two of them quickly sidelined my position in the company and transferred all my work results to Jessica Hayes. I'm doing this for the company's good. Jessica has studied abroad for many years, and with her help, the company will surely thrive. You've also been busy for many years. Now you can finally relax and enjoy your life as Mrs. Smith, just as I promised you back then. My mind went blank at the time, a lump of anger stuck in my throat, unable to disperse. Robert Smith really knew how to play his cards, using me when he needed something, discarding me when he didn't. Now, he wanted to repeat the same trick. Wait for me to solve the problem, then kick me aside. I sneered. Jessica Hayes is a top GR. Graduate from abroad. If she can't solve the infringement problem, there's even less I can do. What's more, I'm just a housewife now. I don't know anything about company management. That's what he and Jessica Hayes always used to brush me off when they talked about work. Now I finally threw it back at him. Sarah, please help me. This company also has your hard work in it. Can you just watch the company face a lawsuit? As long as you help me get through this crisis, I'll give you whatever you want. This man still wanted to play the emotional card to pave the way for Jessica Hayes, but my feelings for him had completely vanished, just like the death of the old oak tree. On the other end of the phone, Jessica Hayes must have snatched the assistant's phone. Her urgent tone surprisingly held a rare hint of respect. Sarah, I offended you before, and I'm saying sorry. You love Robert so much, you surely can't bear to see him in trouble, right? Back then, to help Jessica Hayes get a firm foothold in the company, Robert Smith forced me to hand over my design drafts. Jessica Hayes not only plagiarized my work but also changed the creator's name to her own. When Robert Smith found out, he not only didn't stop her but didn't even say a harsh word. The two of them were only concerned with being smug, unaware that some elements in those designs were a patent that only David Adams, my senior, could use. And the only person authorized to use it was me. David Adams learned about what happened to me and was determined to help me get revenge. That's why he collected the evidence and filed the lawsuit with the court. If Jessica Hayes didn't want to go to prison, she had to admit she stole my work. The work they were so proud of back then had now become a hot potato for them. If I forgave them so easily, where would that leave David Adams? I'm sorry, I can't help. Robert Smith's expression changed after hearing my reply. Sarah, now is not the time for you to throw a tantrum. If you don't help us, we'll be in big trouble. And Jessica will also be implicated because of you. She's innocent. I sneered. Did I force her to use my work? Did I force her to change the name to her own? Now that there's infringement, you want me to take the blame for her? Were you too programmed for this? You've calculated everything perfectly. Robert Smith froze for 2 seconds, then took a deep breath and spoke as if he had made a decision. Sarah, this work came from your hands. If something happens to Jessica Hayes, you won't be able to clear yourself either. I was struck by his arrogance. Had I put him on too high a pedestal in the past? Otherwise, where did he get this confidence? Mr. Smith, you didn't say that back then. You said that employee designs belong entirely to the company and have nothing to do with the former designer. Robert Smith choked with anger but was speechless. Sarah, I know you're upset, but you have to prioritize. Once we get past this hurdle, I'll take you to Hawaii to compensate you properly. It was the same old carrot and stick routine. Hawaii was where I wanted to go for our honeymoon a year ago. After I sent Robert Smith all the travel plans, he claimed it was a business trip and tipped Jessica Hayes and my itinerary to Hawaii for 7 days. During those 7 days, I saw messages of the two of them showing off their affection on Jessica Hayes' social media feed every day. I sighed. Divorce me, and I'll help you. Once the infringement charges were confirmed, all the company's funds would be frozen. I couldn't let this affect my assets after the divorce. Robert Smith's face didn't show the expected surprise. Instead, it became even paler. Sarah, can you please not throw a tantrum at this time? You've been out of this industry for so long, this won't affect you at all, but Jessica is different. She's at the peak of her career. If something happens, her future career will be ruined. My husband is really such a good man. Even when he couldn't even protect himself, every sentence was about his little secretary. Robert Smith, you really are a good boss. First, you crippled my hand for your little secretary, and now you want to push me out to take the blame for her. I must have done something terrible in a past life to deserve you. Robert Smith suddenly seemed to remember something, and his face drained of color, inch by inch, turning pale. Your hand is really injured? Talking to him was pure waste of time. All my interactions with him left me physically and mentally exhausted. His expression panicked, and he nervously blocked my path. Sarah, can we go home and talk properly? There must be a misunderstanding between us for us to reach this point. Let's clear up the misunderstanding and continue living a good life together, okay? If it were before, hearing him coax me, perhaps I would have gladly forgiven him, or even offered to help him solve the problem. But now, the numbness in my hand constantly reminded me how heartless this man was to me. Save your breath. We don't have a home, and there is no future. You can go pursue the happiness you want. From the moment you decided to push me out, our relationship ended. After saying this, I walked straight past him. Robert Smith stood behind me motionless for a long time, eventually slowly kneeling down, clutching his heart, and didn't get up for a long time. I didn't see Robert Smith for the next few days. I heard that he and Jessica Hayes were fighting endlessly over the infringement issue every day. Even so, he sent flowers and gifts to the apartment every day. I refused all his attempts to compensate me. If I couldn't refuse, I left it to the courier to handle. Robert Smith's car was parked downstairs from the apartment building every day. He stood there like a statue, never bothering me actively, but also never leaving. To avoid prison time, Robert Smith and Jessica Hayes went personally to apologize and compensated by giving up half of the company's funds, which finally settled the matter. David Adams called me and joked that the money could be used for my wedding. Wasn't that satisfying enough? I should have known better than to easily let that couple go. David Adams was indignant. If you hadn't given up going abroad back then, he wouldn't be where he is today. I can't believe that jerk dared to betray you. I smiled, but couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Robert Smith and I were indeed deeply in love back then, so much so that I could give up everything for him. But after a few years, things had changed, and we were no longer the same people. He had grown used to my efforts and used to ignoring my pain. The person who said he loved me only existed in my memories. I accepted David Adams's job offer to work in Oakwood City next month, starting in market development. Before starting the new job, I began receiving intensive art tutoring from David Adams. One night, just after ending a video call with David Adams, there was a knock on the door. I opened it to find Robert Smith looking drunk, his eyes swirling with inexplicable emotion. "Sarah, when are you coming home? I've already made Jessica Hayes leave the company. I promise I'll never cross paths with her again in this life. I still love you. Can you give me another chance? I'll make it up to you properly." Actually, I had heard a little bit about what happened with Jessica Hayes. Apparently, after I filed for divorce, Jessica Hayes became bolder and brazenly tried to have sex with Robert Smith in the office. Jessica Hayes must have been eager to climb the ranks. She wore lingerie and lunged at Robert Smith the moment he opened the door, shocking the major client and the smaller partners behind them. Robert Smith kicked Jessica Hayes out in front of everyone. People in the company not only pointed and gossiped, but some even took pictures and posted them online. Jessica Hayes never appeared in the company again after that. The client still terminated the partnership, and it set off a chain reaction, with multiple partner companies issuing termination notices after learning about the incident. I looked down on Robert Smith, my cold gaze showing no fluctuation of emotion. What you do with Jessica Hayes has nothing to do with me. I just want a divorce. Robert Smith's eyes were red-rimmed. He pulled at the hem of my clothes and repeated over and over, "No, I don't want a divorce. Please give me another chance, okay?" I didn't waste words with Robert Smith and just pushed him out. The next morning, I was knocked awake by the neighbor. I saw Robert Smith sitting dejectedly by the door, speaking in a whining tone, "Sarah, my head hurts badly." He looked up, his red-rimmed eyes seeming to sparkle with tears. "Can you make me a sleep sachet? I haven't slept in many days." I looked at the pitiful man before me and frowned. "There are plenty of oak trees at the plantation. Can't you just hug one of those to sleep? Mr. Smith's body is really precious." The man avoided eye contact. Maybe it has to be that tree." I gave Robert Smith a deep look and closed the door, walking out. The man followed closely behind. When he saw me stop at the entrance to the old property, a flicker of joy appeared in his eyes. "Sarah, I knew you still cared about my health." My face, however, remained expressionless. Everything at the old property was just as it had been the night of the family gathering. Seeing the sleep sachets swaying in the breeze in the gazebo, Robert Smith's face showed a gentle smile. He had collected the discarded sleep sachets and hung them here together, saying it was proof of my love for him. A long time had passed, and the sleep sachets had lost their original color, just as my feelings for him had become damaged and faded under the arrow shine of time. Robert Smith stood in the yard, staring at the withered old oak tree, his eyes full of shock. I spoke indifferently. "Want a sleep sachet? Make it live again first." How? How could this happen? I ignored his shock. Why wouldn't it? Mr. Smith, smoking might be caused by sulfuric acid, not just hot water. You should understand that basic chemistry, right? My words were laced with mockery, like a bolt from the blue, stunning Robert Smith into silence for a long time. Do you still think I'm asking for a divorce just because of a tree? Robert Smith lowered his head and remained silent. After a moment, I heard his low, suppressed crying. 7 years of sincere dedication only earned me one sentence from him that night of the family gathering: "You did it voluntarily, I didn't force you." He didn't deserve forgiveness. And I wouldn't forgive him on behalf of the old oak tree either. Ungrateful people deserve to suffer. Leaving that sentence, I left. Robert Smith didn't appear in my life again. Half a month later, I received an unfamiliar call. Robert Smith's friend sounded anxious on the other end. "Hello, is this Sarah? Robert drank too much. You should come pick him up quickly. He wouldn't go back no matter what we said, kept repeating your name and saying he was waiting for you." Holding the phone, I couldn't help but recall a year ago. I got his drunk call and immediately took a taxi to pick him up. When I got to the private room, I saw Robert Smith resting his head on Jessica Hayes's lap, holding her hand and kissing it repeatedly. The scene was so tender it was painful to watch, stinging my eyes painfully, making them blur with tears. Even now I still remember what Robert Smith said. "What are you doing here? Are you trying to catch us or interfere with my relationship with Jessica? I don't need you. Don't bother me unless something is wrong." The person on the phone heard I wasn't speaking and spoke again. "Sarah, are you listening?" "Yes," I replied very faintly. "Robert Smith and I are getting a divorce. You should find Jessica Hayes." With that, I hung up, put down my phone, and slept soundly all night. The next day, I went to the hospital for a follow-up. At the end of the corridor, I saw a nurse helping Robert Smith walk slowly. Robert Smith was in a hospital gown, his face so pale it had no color at all. He was startled when he saw me, then stumbled towards me. "Sarah," he called my name. I ignored him, but the nurse beside him spoke. "Are you related to the patient? He drank until he went into shock last night. His face was gray when he was brought to the hospital. You should make sure to tell him not to drink like this anymore. It's very dangerous." The man looked flustered. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, it's all memories of us. I could only rely on alcohol to numb myself. I watched Robert Smith expressionlessly. Seeing that I hadn't left, his eyes were full of expectation. "Are you here to see me?" "No." Hearing my answer, his eyes dimmed slightly. He explained in a panicked and nervous way, "I've properly reflected on our problems recently. I was wrong from the beginning. In this marriage, I didn't give you proper respect, didn't give you a proper sense of security, kept getting entangled with Jessica Hayes, and even when something happened to you, I was still hurting your heart. I know I was wrong. I'm truly remorseful. But Sarah, we've been married for 7 years. I don't want to give up. I promise I'll never make you sad again. Please give me another chance, okay?" Robert Smith confessed every word, crying and begging, his voice choked several times. The young nurse beside him was so moved her eyes turned red and she looked at me expectantly, hoping I would respond kindly to Robert Smith. Only I, from beginning to end, watched him coldly. My words held the calmness of a heart that had died. "There's no chance, Robert Smith." "There is a chance. Sarah, I beg you." Robert Smith became too emotional and vomited a mouthful of blood, looking extremely pathetic. Looking at him like this, I felt no worry or sadness at all, only indifference. During the nerve repair surgery, I was immersed in the sorrow of never being able to draw again. He never cared to ask once. I ran into him at the hospital during my physical therapy, and he thought I was stalking him, calling my behavior despicable, and even hurt my recovering wrist again. Now he wanted to use a few flimsy words to make me change my mind? It was utterly ridiculous. "Robert Smith, if I had known being with you would cost me so much, I shouldn't have saved you back then." Leaving that sentence, I ignored Robert Smith and turned to leave. The color drained from his face instantly, he spat out a mouthful of blood, and collapsed straight down. In the hospital corridor, I heard the sounds of nurses and doctors rushing to help. I glanced calmly and walked straight out without stopping. Later, Robert Smith perhaps realized he could never win my heart back. He didn't hold out until the trial and signed the divorce papers. The assets were divided equally, company shares too. The last time I saw him was at the lawyer's office/courthouse, when we got the divorce certificate. He still hadn't given up. Do you really have no feelings for me anymore? I was silent for a moment and nodded. I didn't want to waste any more energy maintaining this marriage in name only. I only wanted to live for myself now. Walking out of the lawyer's office/courthouse, David Adams's car was parked at the entrance. He wore a black plaid suit and had a faint smile, attracting everyone's attention the moment he appeared. He put flowers in my arms. "Let's go. I'll take you to the airport." I took the flowers and naturally got into the passenger seat. In the rearview mirror, Robert Smith's figure remained frozen in place. A rare sense of vengeful satisfaction arose within me. Robert Smith froze for a few seconds, then chased after me like he was crazy, pounding on the car window. "Sarah, where are you going?" David Adams stopped the car and rolled down the window, his smile not reaching his eyes. "We're going to register our marriage in Ireland. Be sure to attend our wedding on time." Robert Smith's steps suddenly stopped. He stood there stunned, an expression of utter heartbreak on his face. Inside the car, I laughed and teased. David Adams really went to a lot of trouble to act with me. He threw a box to me, smiling. "If we're going to act, let's do it right." I laughed and opened it. A diamond ring lay there quietly. I've wanted to pursue you for a long time. Unfortunately, your eyes were only on that jerk. The 5 o'clock flight tonight. First, we register in Ireland, then Germany for surgery to fix your nerves, and finally Hawaii for our honeymoon. Any problems? I suddenly thought of something. How do I feel like I walked into your trap? David Adams smiled. "Silly Sarah, I love you.